This is the cross-pollination session, and we are a group of 4 co-chairs. Natalie Bennett is missing from the UK, who have been doing or running this group now for, I think, almost 2 or 3 years. And this group has existed, though, before we took over with the co-chairing of it. This group is about communicating sustainable consumption. And we really saw the importance to keep this group running. It was founded by Philipp Vergracht over 10 years ago and had different participants. And our goal is to reach both researchers and practitioners around the world to come together for 1 hour, share a light bulb speech, which we have a very interesting one today, and then exchange their experiences and their perspectives on the topic. So together we can actually advance and bridge this gap between the research and the action that we really urgently need to bridge with effective and impactful communication. So here's a bit of the context of our the 2 networks that we are part of, the SCORI network, which is in fact short for Sustainable Consumption Research and Action Initiative, and then Future Earth, which is a global network of mostly academics, but from all different fields around the world. And most of you are familiar with that, so I'll keep it short. These are some of the topics that Future Earth is working on, and there's also representation on science policy level. Today we are looking, and I'm really excited about this, on a topic that couldn't be more timely. We have, again, I feel, with all the people being out in the streets for peace in Gaza, a social momentum, a momentum where we sense the possibility of a change in direction, of a change that is also called a positive tipping point or a social tipping point. And there is successful campaigns that have been happening on the topic, and our today's presenter, Professor Ian Black, has been working on the topic now for a few years. And he's really passionate about the topic, and this is also what brought us together at the last SCORA Europe conference. Because we both share the passion for making societal or understanding societal shifts, societal leverage points, and then also contributing to those with our knowledge. So bridging this gap through education and transformative education. I think you, Ian, you call it deep education. And just to give you an example with Ian's climate education program, he has reached over, and now you have to help me out. It is how many hundred?
135,000 people they've had the opportunity to learn it. Whether they've actually sat down with all of the online materials is under debate, but certainly 135,000
exactly
sign up.
Yes. So I love that approach that you try to reach people around the world with, and that's something you definitely accomplish. And then also as the director of the I closed it now, of course, of the university at Strath, and help me out again. How do you spell that?
Strathclyde University Business School.
Strathclyde?
Strathclyde University Business School.
Strathclyde Business School. You're a professor for sustainable consumption there, and focusing on exactly the why people choose to consume or not to consume, like anti-consumption. What are responses to scarcity, and why do we say and want to act sustainably, but then in the end don't? So what are leverage points, and also communication examples of when it actually does work, when do people actually do change, but how can we actually maintain then momentum of change and also fight off attempts from big corporate interest or other powers and interest groups who want to actually stop the change. So with having said all that, yeah, I'm Valentina Bersano Dearborn, and I myself also have worked for now over 2 decades on the topic of transformative learning and transdisciplinary system research, but have now for the last 5 years worked more in facilitating and hosting workshops on the topic and getting great minds together on our organic farm in Italy, but also at the university where I'm teaching global citizenship education. But yeah, that's enough on me. And now to you, Ian, for your light bulb speech. So then after that, we can open the discussion with everybody present.
Thank you enormously, Valentina, for the original invite and for the secondary invite when we didn't manage to get things organized last time around. So thanks enormously for this and giving me another audience to base it, I think, very much pull from their experience. So hopefully I'll give you some ideas to think about today, some particular framings, but really interested in pulling expertise from those in the room. So what I'd like to just do is share my slides. We'll just take a reset. There we go. I think I'm gonna start with an example I hadn't planned to start with, but it just popped into my mind. So yesterday evening, just as I was leaving the office, I got a phone call, an email from a journalist, a radio journalist, saying, would you mind providing us answers to 4 questions based on Trump's speech yesterday at the UN? And of course, as 5:10, I was supposed to be having dinner with a friend at 5:30, so I worked on them late on the train and put something back out to them. So I think seeing Salim from the University of Delaware, I think I've probably ruined my chances of being accepted into the into the US next time I tried to turn up. But essentially, it was 4 questions about Trump's speech. And I think this kind of highlights what I'm trying to get to today, that we all have this clear vision and this clear motivation to create this low carbon world, and not just a low carbon world of privation or going backwards, these sort of ideas that we will have less, but to have those sort of sumptuous worlds where we have wonderfully thermally appropriate homes that we don't have to spend money on heating because we've insulated them so well. We have lovely communities that we can walk to, that nature is restored, that we eat good food, and our clothing is well made and repairable, and they have all of these things. But of course, what we're up against is that threatens enormously a lot of vested interest. And Trump, to me, is just a proxy actor. He's a puppet for these vested interests who lose everything if we move to the sort of democratic, community orientated, low carbon world that we think is just so obvious that we should do to it. But of course, there are many individuals and organizations who are working against that. So as a marketer, ultimately as a consumer psychologist and someone who's worked in this gap between intentions and actions for a long time, I've sort of picked up great networks of people I work with. And one of the things that we wanted to bring back into, and I'm highlighting on this slide here with Stuart Kirkpatrick, is a very experienced digital campaigner who helped develop the ideas today about making sure we understand as academics and campaigners and as activist academics how we can campaign better in a contested spaces. So rather than thinking we just can come out with one great slogan and we update that in 3 months' time when we do a little bit more research, recognizing that we are campaigning over time against highly organized, highly professional, and very deep-pocketed opponents. And to bring that into the Tipping Points framework that has grown in popularity through the work of Tim Lenton at Exeter, and links in obviously with Future Earth and within Potsdam as well. So trying to bring a little bit of realism to the global tipping points community around the positive social tipping points, and that these nice shapes that we can draw and how physical systems, or mathematically we might think about how systems tip, and we are up against opponents who will be fighting at every point to make sure that doesn't occur. So what I'd like to sort of do today is very much put you to work, if that's okay. So this is as Valentina described to me, this is a group of experts in communication, and I'd really be very keen for you to give some ideas. First of all, on the on the fossil fuel industry strategies and tactics that they're using, and then about contested campaigns and messages, and importantly, or particularly, what research or big ideas do we need to include? Because what I'm trying to do, one of the things I'm doing at the moment, is you'll see on the corner there's a positive social tipping points toolkit that's been developed by Exeter University. So this is a toolkit that says exactly what it wants to do to support communities, groups across scale, to learn lessons to tip their particular social system towards this low carbon view, low carbon existence that we're looking for. So whether it's globally about moving to plant-based proteins, or whether it's setting up a bike hire scheme in a rural town where you're trying to reduce transport emissions. So this toolkit is there to try and support people as they move. And I wanted to bring our one in here is about how do you campaign against well-funded, expert, and very dogged opponents who have learned from tobacco control in how to stop systems tipping wherever they are on that systems tipping point. So what I'd like to do today is go a little bit more about the introduction, then get into some breakout rooms looking at fossil fuel industries and strategies, tactics, quick overview of what we've found, then into contested campaigning. And what are the rules of contested campaigning, and what is the research that I need to try to intertwine into this toolkit to make sure that when community groups are developing their own strategies over time, they're relying on the best of knowledge, rather than as we so often find, rather than going for maybe a cognitive, informational approach, rather than using emotions and different appeal types and all of the antecedents and moderators that we know affect a message construction, and then acceptance, and then the action off the back of those. So I wanted just to highlight briefly here. This is something that DSMOG did just very recently, and highlights the over 100 agencies that AMCO, the Saudi Arabian nationalized petrochemical company, this is of the 100 agencies globally that they employ to make sure that their message is brought across. That's just one agency, and of course, if you're keeping an eye on the Callahan and Mankin work, an organisation that now effectively owes the world trillions in the climate-related damage that it's been brought through, that its carbon dioxide has and other emissions have created. So this is what we're up with. And for those of you in the communications industry, McCann Erickson and McCann are enormously well respected organisations with decades of history about being very, very good at marketing and messaging and persuasion. It is an interesting aside that some of these agencies don't won't outwardly recognise that they're working for Armco, because they know internally that their staff would be unhappy with that. So they call them various pseudonyms in order to act. But that's just one snapshot of what we're up against. Trump is another response to what we're up against. If the oil and gas industry can't win science, well, let's go after science. Let's put up something that can destroy the institution of science, because it's a game that they know that they can't win. And I think that these things are telling about what we're up against. Where I'm very much coming from intellectually is, I can't quite see at the bottom here the picture of Professor Jared Hastings, who's my old social marketing professor, still keeping contact with. He spent 4 decades fighting the tobacco industry, and also what he also calls the industrial epidemics. If we think about how much of what our health systems now are geared to the diseases that they work against, these are industrial epidemics, whether it's big food and the low quality, high fat, trans fat foods that we have, whether it's our lack of walking because our cities have been taken over by the housing lobby in ways that we undermined active transport, whether it's tobacco, where 1 in 2 tobacco smokers will die of tobacco-related smoking-related causes. So very much coming from someone I learned from him in the early 90s and as an undergraduate, and then kept in contact as he went from a social marketer trying to do a better job of creating messages that would counter tobacco. So rather than just saying, hey, you're going to get a disease, well, that doesn't really resonate particularly well with teenage girls and teenage boys who do think they're immortal. So did campaigns around the ideas, for example, of nobody will want to kiss you. So with that dirty breath that comes with tobacco, well, what's the big thing that might put a teenage boy and a teenage girl off? Well, nobody's going to want to kiss you if you smell like that. Born out of good research, message development, and delivery, and these things have led to a collapse in tobacco smoking in the UK and in many other countries. But it also, that was just the start of it, and it moved on then through actions and counter-actions over 4 decades in his career. Then moved into junk food advertising and communications as the tobacco, as these other industries, these other these other industries learned from tobacco and how to avoid being banned and having their marketing restricted. So 4 decades of working working hard against a series of organizations and campaigns, and at every twist and turn, the tobacco industry would change its tactics. There was an example, where you weren't allowed to. They stopped you putting humans on tobacco adverts. So the tobacco industry invented a whole new genre of advertising around teasers. So there's a brand in the UK called Silk Cut. So instead of having a person smoking a Silk Cut cigarette, and they weren't allowed to use their brand name Silk Cut, so what did they do? On big 32 sheet poster boards, they put a beautiful picture of silk in the brand colours with a little cut down it. Worked beautifully to reinforce that this advert was for Silk Cut. That's the sort of whatever they did something else. Whatever Jared did, they would come up with something else. So within the Tipping Points framework, this is taken from the previous Tipping Points report, what we have is the setting up these enabling conditions, creating the enabling conditions for tipping. There are then these reinforcing or support positive or negative feedbacks that either push the tipping system further into a safe and just world, or the negative feedbacks are powerful and there's shallower outcomes, or the negative feedbacks from are sufficiently powerful that unintended consequences and much shallower or non-tipping is seen. So whereas this is the idea of how it happens that we have these positive and negative feedback loops which push a system into its new state, I would say that at every point we have the deliberate dampening effects when it comes to climate change from the oil and gas industry, the fossil fuel industry, and all their proxies. And everything we're trying to do at every point, whether we're trying to enabling a tipple system, or we're trying to accelerate it or stabilize it, they're working against us. And therefore, what we've got to do is try to reduce their dampening effects. So what is that we then do to reduce those deliberate dampening effects, those negative feedbacks on the system? So what I'd be keen for us to do in the first instance of this is and see how this works out is pop you into a couple of breakout rooms and identify fossil fuel industry strategies and tactics. I've put in the chat a PowerPoint, just a PowerPoint presentation with just 3 slides in it to give you a framework to work from. And what that and the questions that I would ask you to do is how do they slow progress? And across a range of scales, mission sectors, stakeholder target group, whatever. What are case studies, strategies, and tactics used to either undermine the conditions for a system to tip or to slow progress? And which of those are deliberate actions, and which of those are just competing incompetence or lack of competence or just competing goals for other reasons? So to try and understand the strategies and tactics that undermine enabling conditions, those that support dampening effects. And what that might look like, so let me just jump out. Sorry, I'd meant to put a I'd meant to put a click on that. What that might look like. These are the in the first 3 columns here. We have the enabling conditions, the feedbacks, and then sorry, can see it. What can increase and reinforce feedbacks, and what can trigger tipping. These are from the Global Tipping Points report. So to help the conditions, we can target smaller populations, we can change social networks, we can provide information about about plant-based diets or about the low carbon active travel. We can reduce the price of our electric vehicles. Those are the things that enable conditions, and then what we do to speed it on its way and to trigger the tipping are those other ones. In tobacco terms, these are the activities in green of what the tobacco industry did to work against that. So its use of marketing, communications, and PR, legal and regulatory challenges, commercial lobbying, astroturfing. These were the things that they did to try and stop these smoking of tobacco being tipped to I suppose out of existence. So anything to maintain their grip on the market, these are the things that they did. And in the final column, what we have is examples of what the tobacco control campaigners did in order to work against those activities that the tobacco industry were undertaking. So for the time in the chat, I'd be really keen to hear your what you would put in for the strategies and tactics for positive social tipping points in the towards low carbon systems. So Valentina, if I stop sharing there, could we maybe sure. Could we pop folk into groups, and we can between the two of us maybe facilitate the discussions and around, and then maybe spend sort of 10 minutes on this before then moving to a second task.
Val, you're muted.
Yeah. Thank you.
No,
Yes. Yeah, then give me a second and I'll put you out of one of the breakout groups and bring you into a different one. So, okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll open the breakout rooms and also share the link again then so everybody has the slides available. Enjoy the discussions.
So, gotta I'm leaving now, okay? So I won't be interrupting later on. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank
I
you,
was just,
Jenny.
I was just thinking for the next session, we may invite Jeff, Jeff and Karen,
Yeah, could be
but we'll
good.
talk
That's
about
true.
that later.
They're
Thanks
always
a lot,
very
Ian.
present and supportive.
I
Yes.
Hi, Ian. Thank you very
Bye.
much. I
Bye,
have to
Jenny.
jump out. Have to pick up my daughter in 10 minutes. So thank you very much. Have a nice day, guys.
Bye. Okay, good. So we
Okay.
have three breakout rooms. Ah, yeah, perfect. And we have with each three people in it, and then the two of us who can
Um,
jump in. I just wanted to make sure everybody has the slides to work with. Mm, okay, I uploaded them in Google Drive as well, so in case people can't open them, then like me, then they can do this way. I just have to change the 1 second. Do you wanna? I think
yeah, just say go
can I
for it.
give you co-host rights so you can jump in on your own?
Please do, yeah.
Co-host. Okay, there you are. So
Okay.
you can now jump in and out. You should be able at least, and
So shall I jump into? I'll go into number one, and you can maybe go.
to number two. Number one is
I'll
just
go.
was.
I'll go into number two, and then I'll go
It's
into number four.
super interesting people in number two. Yeah, do so. You'll
Okay.
love them.
Sure. Okay. And I'll quickly move on to number four if you want to spend your time in three.
Okay, va bene. Very
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Hi, Ian.
Hi there.
We are back.
Back here. Are we back in the main room, or are we?
Yeah, we're back in the main room. I think Valentina
Back
kicked
in
us all out from the breakouts.
Yeah, no, I've got a terrific conversation there with a couple of American colleagues who are, geez, they're in a very different state of how they're, in a contested campaign at the moment and the strategies. But really fascinating to hear how they're,
Yeah.
they're trying to, in some, obviously just trying to survive in the short term at the moment before moving on. How,
Oh, everybody's coming back now.
everybody's coming back now. Thanks enormously to group two. I was in there listening to some actually fascinating ideas on just how Karen and Jeffrey are surviving at the moment, still thriving within a very hostile political environment. But you can see the rebellion, the counter campaigning is moving and working. Some terrific ideas in there about the way of restricting access, the softening, looking to soften the language to soften the actions that have been taken. Also, just picking up from me, we're being dragged into false contests. We're being falling into arguments that they've already worked out where the conclusion is. And it reminds me of a colleague's work he's a journalist looking at social media posts, and he's worked out how Chevron and other fossil fuel industry companies are sending out positive messages about the environment. But the way that they've tagged in certain keywords and certain social commentators, they know it's going to get thrown into some mincing machine, and the overall sentiment is going to be negative by the time Reddit and X is finished with it. So they can stand there and says, "We did great things. Look what we said. We said we should do. We should save the penguins," knowing that the right people are going to turn that around in there. I'm just wondering, anyone else from other groups, things that we might add in here as things we're seeing as those the examples of strategies and tactics taken by fossil fuel, etc.
Well, in group three, we talked about many things, maybe more about the food sector than the fossil sector, but we started out talking about some of the fossil companies like Total Energy. They are very busy promoting what they do in relation to green energies, showing cows and talking biogas. Well, despite that's not even green, but I mean, they try to show that all the other things they do apart from the fossil stuff, so to say.
I mean, yeah, so sort of highlighting the 2% of their income that comes from renewable energy, and highlighting that, the very idea that most of the nationally owned oil and gas companies in Europe are now energy companies, despite the fact they're still making from their oil and gas. Anything else we want to bring forward? I realise with time I'm going to adjust the last 10 minutes and just ask us sort of questions within this room. But is there anything else people would like to foreground in this?
We talked about the major differences in terms of making the connection with health is really problematic. With climate change is more difficult and distant compared to with tobacco. So how we do that can make the tipping point much easier to do. So like with China, the tipping point happened with reference to their coal emissions to some degree when the smog issue became so personalized, and it was impacting people's quality of life, and they linked the pollution to climate change. But with a lot of the other factors we have in the world with climate change policy, it's much more difficult. Plus, it's not an individual decision; it's a governmental decision. Buying cigarettes is an individual decision generally. Yes, using cars is individual, but most fossil fuels are for energy generation, so that is not an individual decision. So we have to find a way to make the individual and the collective more closely coupled.
Well, that's terrific. And when I was as you were saying that, what I was wondering if we could do is just segue into the last 10 minutes, as you're picking up on construal level theory here about distance versus abstract in terms of in terms of tobacco health versus fossil fuel. I was wondering if we could maybe go around the room and within this recording, because we're picking up this recording, what are those research-led case studies, pieces of findings, antecedents, theories, that when I'm boiling this down, these ideas down to a grassroots campaigners, what are the things they need to know? You know, what are the things that are really going to help them when they are developing messages and campaigns, that they don't just go on, you know, here's a nice picture, or sorry, a sad picture of a sad penguin or a sad polar bear somewhere, and say, you know, save the polar bears, don't drive to work. You know, what are the things that they need to know? And I was wondering if we could, we could just go around the room and give them also like your top 2 tips or something like that that I can boil down. I think that'd be terrifically useful if you don't mind. Is there anyone who might want to start? Stefan.
Yeah, maybe we talked a bit about this because many narratives around climate change are really doom. It's not good to not act, but they create more negative scenarios. So the thing is, how can we have a positive message and framing like it's good for you that's related to the health issue? How can we tell the people it's good for you if you take yourself action, or at least vote on the policy level, take action by voting, and it's good for you? Because the total narrative is if we don't do things, hard catastrophes will happen. And the other thing is it's so negatively framed. If you consume less, if you drive less cars, it's some kind of often framed as restriction and not good, but it's more morally good, but not good for yourself. So how can we frame it positively? It's good for you or yourself to take action, right?
Yeah,
To
and
frame it positively.
I was also hearing in there that those sort of different levels of what is good for you. It might be your, you know, your physical health, but your mental health, about, you know, staying hopeful, feeling
Yeah.
agentic, you know, those things as well in these times, which
Yeah.
that can be difficult. So that positive, you know, away from the negative towards the positive framing. Anyone
Yeah,
else?
exactly.
Yeah, maybe I can build on that directly because
Yes, Jane.
our NGO is called Visions in Action, Sustainable Visions in Action. It's exactly about this. It's about creating a positive vision that we want to walk towards too. And I would say 2 more elements are important to get people on board. Yes, it's actually the visualization also, to really visualize what this beautiful future will look like. So if people can see it, they can also work towards it. So if it's beautiful green buildings with solar panels and foodscapes in cities or rural contexts with communities coming together, and that and healthy, beautiful flowers and food and around bikes and everything. And that's the second point. Communities don't be alone, but bring people together and make them actually work, like create possibilities for people to work towards this common vision together. And the visualization, I would say, yeah, of those. And then I pass the word to the next person.
Karen, I saw you looking to come in there.
Just don't think of it as you need to speak to everybody. There are people who will just never agree with this. Don't waste your time with that. Catherine Hayhoe talks a lot about that. And it's just, there are people, there's a big swath in the middle, work on them.
When I was campaigning for Scottish independence in 2014, we got quite good at working out the people in the Labour Party who were deliberately trying to stop us and chat to us for a long time, so we didn't get the people that we wanted to we could persuade. You know, you just sort of if you only had 2 hours, if they could chew me up for half an hour, I couldn't get to the next door.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and there's a way to do that. I mean, in negotiation literature, we call it, zone of possible agreement. And you try to see if there is a zone. Sometimes there is no zone of possible agreement because the other side, and this is true even on the left of the political spectrum, like one solution to climate, we're talking about nuclear energy. For some people, it's a normative issue. They're never going to agree to it. So there's no point, you can present them the risk analysis, the science, everything, the scenarios. So similarly, you say, okay, they can just do their campaign, they do their, and then the other party. But there are times when you can negotiate. And that's why finding that zone of possible agreement is key. But it's good you brought up Catherine Hayhoe, because I also brought up one of the problems in terms of the personal narrative change is how do you get people to see this as a value? And because Hayhoe works with religious groups, she's personally a very religious person. She has really used the church in that. And I was saying in the US, we have the MAGA movement is very religiously observant. But for some reason, a lot of this kind of narrative has not come through to them as much from the right kind of sources. So you've got within the church, there's a division. You have the prosperity ideology, and the other, the Catherine Hayhoe type of churchgoers, and maybe finding a way for them to talk to each other might help.
Thank you enormously. I love that phrase, the zone of possible agreement. And then again, as soon as you said that, see this as a value. Again, I can see these things being really useful in a workshop situation for folk to bring their thinking to. Anyone else? Jeffrey, and then me.
Sorry. What Slim was saying about the religious groups here, like we're here in the Washington DC area, and we work with actually a lot of different religious groups that are focused especially on climate change, including the Catholic Climate Covenant and others. There's a whole bunch of these groups focusing on that nexus there. And I think that the problem with a lot of these groups is they aren't as politically savvy in terms of a lot of things. Like when we we did a bunch of I don't know, I'm talking too long. Anyway, I guess the point is that I think while they're kind of learning lobbying techniques and that kind of thing, they're willing to go to council meetings and all that. They just need to be mobilized more, have more tools of like how to get their own messages across rather than just trying to convince people to put solar panels on their roofs to get more political.
That's getting people
Yeah, I just a couple of quick thoughts. Having worked in public health and particularly in public health communications for a number of years, whenever I am with academics who say if they would just know this, if they would just value this, I know there's an arrogance in this perspective, and I think whenever we have that sentiment, we need to stop. Is this a persuasion game, or is it a deeper kind of seeing what things more clearly? And sometimes, I mean, public health, as I was saying, was discredited and branded nanny state because a lot of public health communications back in the days was do this, don't do that, so we brought some of that on ourselves. So I think there has to be a humility in any of the communications, rather than I want you to value this, what do you value? I want you to know this. What are your thoughts? I don't know. That's the space I'm in at the moment.
But thanks for bringing all of these tools. People, this is perspectives, this is ideas. You know what works for you. Where are you on this? Trusting people's care about their communities, their humanity. They use them to construct what hopefully can be better, rather than saying here's a decision tree that you should do. We'll just ask ChatGPT-5 what the message is and go from there. I'm noticing that's coming around to 3 o'clock. I'd like to thank you enormously for what was a way too quick hour. Valentina, you should have been at least 2. And that's not my fault for trying to get too much in. But I found that really, really useful hopefully it's maybe got some cross-fertilized, some thinking
Yes.
with it as well. Please reach out to me if you've got anything that any papers you think I need to include, or any ideas that any case studies that I should be linking to. Just as Catherine Trebek talked about the wellbeing economy as a rug on which you can bring in good ideas for people, I think this is what I'm trying to do with this toolkit, and then also push the Global TippingPoints group a little bit harder in what they bring in, because at the moment it's all very nice. And one of the slides I would have shown is in the thick of it, which is a brilliant piece of political satire from the UK, and it basically slide says, "We're in a pub fight. It's a real fight. Motherwell rules." And I don't know, Motherwell's a town near Glasgow. I don't know what particularly violent fights they have down there, but we've got to start thinking that we are in one of the frames we might use is that we are in a fight, and we've got to recognise that. So thank you enormously for your time. I love the time.
Yeah. Thank you also for ending almost on time. I know there's always so much more to say, but this is also maybe the takeaway for the next steps, which is, Ian just said it, please reach out to him and to us if you have more to add on the topic. I know with Ian, it's a good spot to drop insights and important research insights and experiences to share, because he will put them into practice. He's a real gap jumper between research and practice. And secondly, you're invited to join us again for the next quarterly cross-pollination session. If you have also topics that you want to discuss that you feel are really important, or you want to recommend somebody who has really great insights on topics that would bring us all further, because we are all struggling with them, all excited about them, or should be, then let us know. We are reachable. Maybe Stefan, you can send our email address in the chat. And then thirdly, you can also connect to the people, take a screenshot right now with all the people's names, and connect also bilaterally via LinkedIn or email or whatever medium you prefer. To stay in touch, so we can actually put one of the insights into practice, which was creating momentum requires collaboration, and it requires collaboration across all levels, top down, but also across all topics, and learning for how to can we create social tipping points together, with our insights from all the different disciplines that we're coming from. Thank you for that.